Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to talk about Edith Wharton's The House of Mirth. Edith Wharton published this book in 1905. Don't let the title fool you though. House of Mirth, it sounds like a house that's filled with laughter, right? No, don't let the title of this book fool you. There is no mirth within this novel. Just to give you an example how the title can be misleading, I worked for a law office and one of our clients had cancer, late stage cancer, and the head attorney decided that she would get her a gift bag together. The attorney was well read and probably adored the work of Edith Wharton. However, she hadn't read The House of Mirth, and I saw The House of Mirth was on the to buy list, and I said, oh, no. This isn't the novel you want to give to our client. And she said, well, why is that? I said, and I'm not going to spoil it for you, but I said, this is absolutely not the book to give to a slightly depressed person. So if you're depressed, I wouldn't recommend to read this novel. One time when I was feeling very, very, very blue, exceedingly blue, I had put out on social media, please, I'm feeling very bad. I need a book to take me away, a book to cheer me up. That's why I said a pick-me-up book, a cheer-me-up book. What do you guys recommend? Somebody recommended that Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. Would you give the Girl with the Dragon Tattoo series to someone who is depressed? Would you do that? This is not a book I would recommend to someone who is depressed. This novel, it's a searing indictment of the New York elite at that time. It's set in the late 1890s, early 1905 to about the time that it was published. It was set in recent time. And it's a critique of the materialism, the gluttonous materialism, and all the fakery and the ery of the elite. Yeah, it's pretty searing, but as you're reading the novel, it's very well written. It's not snarky, it's beautiful, everything is described in such a lovely fashion, but it takes you on this little ride and it dumps you out at the end. The protagonist, Miss Lily Bart, is a beautiful, refined socialite. She has really long, amazing eyelashes, and you can imagine now what women do to get their eyelashes to pop. Well, she just had this natural beauty. She's 29 years old though, so she's unmarried. She's 29 years old and she's been single. She's been out. They used to have coming out parties. She's been out on the social scene for 11 years. And it's not due to her lack of beauty or intelligence or grace. She just is not found the right man that she wants. As both of her parents are deceased, she lives with an aunt, Mrs. Peniston, as essentially her ward, even though Lily is now 29. Usually wards are underage, but she's essentially a ward of her aunt, her rich aunt, Mrs. Peniston. And just to give you an idea of the pretense of this whole entire novel, it's mentioned between the lines that Miss Peniston only really took in Lily because of how it would look if she hadn't taken in Lily. It's not that she doesn't love Lily or like Lily, but it wasn't like she had this need and desire to take in Lily. It was, oh, what would it look like? How uncharitable would I look if I hadn't taken her in? So that gives you kind of a subtext about Lily's situation and where she's coming from and how she sits in this whole family and in this society. Lily isn't free. She's not supporting herself. She's not working class. In fact, the elites they put their nose down at those who work for a living. So she doesn't work. She is being supported by her aunt. She's her ward. And she doesn't have a husband yet to fall back upon. And this is a typical theme in certain novels of that time. You got to find a rich man and you got to marry him. Appearances in this society are important. In fact, they're everything. And Lily is ornamental. She's lovely. She's got these long, thick eyelashes, a beautiful neck. We just get the impression they don't exactly tell you her eye color, her hair color, and all these things. She's tall, because I think they like to leave it for you to fill in what's your idea of what the most beautiful woman would look like, and they let you fill that in. But she is whatever your idea of beauty is. That's Miss Lily. She's graceful and slender, and she looks younger than her 29 years, which helps her on the social scene. She's artful in all her relationships and her dealings with men and her dealings with women, with her married women friends. She's just very graceful and artful, and everything's got this air of beauty and refinement and richness. But that's not how things really are. No, not at all. Lily's first little folly starts right off in the first chapter. She takes an innocent tea with one of her friends in the social circle named Selden, and he was never a romantic interest for her, but she becomes interested in him. But all she does is simply take tea at his apartment, and it is just not a thing for an unmarried woman to be taking tea with an unmarried man in his home, in his house. Oh my gosh, a jeune fille mariée, you just don't do that. So that's her first an idea how she can get a little reckless and do things that are not considered correct in her society. This friend, Lawrence Selden, they just call him Selden most of the time. He's in her social circle, but he's just kind of on the edge of the social circle because he actually works as an attorney. So he actually has a job and he has his own little flat. And they become sort of unrequited lovers to each other throughout this whole entire novel. He affects this air of detachment and can kind of remark on the social situation she's in. And he speaks plainly to her, and she likes that. She likes that he sort of sees through the artifice of it all. At first, he doesn't actually see as full as he sees towards the end of what it's really like to be her. He doesn't understand what it's like to be her. He knows the social norms and mores, but he doesn't understand what it's like to be her. But right in the first chapter, he notes that the links of her bracelets seem like manacles. So she's almost trapped by this society. Lily and all those around her keep scheming and manipulating and trying to get her into these marriage matches with rich men. But Lily fails repeatedly to close the deal, to seal the deal. She sees marriage as a business. And one man after another are maneuvered in and out of this novel, thinking that she's going to marry them or thinking that they could pop the question to her. But before the deal can be sealed or the question popped, she flakes and she ruins it. It's self-sabotage. It really is. She doesn't see it as self-sabotage, but it is self-sabotage. And many of these men are boring her to death. And it's funny because it's mentioned in the novel. She sarcastically wonders about one man, the first one, Percy. If she wins her over, he'll be doing her the honor of boring her for life. So it was just like, she's just so... she's got... I guess you could laugh at that and find that mirthful, but it's her humor can be sort of a resigned, dejected, sorry gallows humor in a way. She would catch him just to be bored to death for the rest of her life. But Lily's not a perfect character. For example, she finds herself superior to many others in the novel. For example, there's Selden has a cousin named Gertie Farish, and Gertie just lives by her own. She's a young unmarried woman that just lives by her own means in a small flat, and it's considered dingy by Lily's standards. And she looks down her nose at Gertie most of the novel. Another cousin that lives in a boarding house that's related to Mrs. Peniston that actually doesn't live in Miss Peniston's house. She looks down her nose. Her name is Grace Stepney. She looks down her nose at Grace Stepney. Another reason, they're dingy. Anybody who doesn't make most of their money, make the most of their looks, make the most of their intellect, make the most of their conversation, and have things look a certain way, the pretense, Lily could consider them dingy and look down her nose and feel a little bit superior to them due to her appearance and her living standard. That's not a great characteristic, is it? But, again, it's timely. Think of all the people on Facebook and in your life that do this sort of shenanigans. They're living a certain way. due to, you know, how it look visually. You know, they're spending all this money and they're living in all these great houses and they're showing you all these great meals that they're eating, and you know, they're up to their eyeballs in debt, or they're declaring bankruptcy, or they're having affairs on this wife that they're hugging in the Olin Mills portrait. You get my point, right? Nothing really changes in the world. Not really. But let's continue. Lily's been spoiled to death, and she was raised from cradle to the grave to need luxury and to have expensive tastes. And you can chalk this up in the novel. She's made to believe that wealth makes one superior to other people, and this is the fault of her domineering mother, bar none. Lily is raised with nurses, she's raised with footmen, she's raised with servants when her parents were alive. And her mother would spend money on fineries. Everything had to be perfect. If they were having a dinner party, everything would be perfect. And then the next morning they would eat the leftovers from the dinner party. She didn't let things spoil, but if somebody else was going to see it, it had to be excellent, it had to be perfect, and it couldn't be like a pig. You know, if you didn't rise to that level, you were a pig. So her mother spent all the money while Lily's father, he actually worked himself to death. And they would vacation in Europe in the summer, and they would travel all around, and Lily was just spoiled beyond belief. And the father is literally a non-entity until there was a need for money. And then whenever the mother would come and ask the father for money, there would be little disagreements, and then the mother would say, "What do you expect us to expect me to live like a pig?" And when he said no in the negative, "I don't expect you to live like a pig," then she would go crazy and order up costumes from Paris, dress shops, custom made, and, you know, go to the jeweler and buy jewelry. She was just extravagant to the extreme. And she drums into Lily as a child. Like, think, you are formed by a lot of most of your childhood, and so it's genetics, and it's how you are brought up, and how life affects you. And she is told, don't be dingy, and this reflects her superiority. When the father goes broke, stony broke, he becomes essentially extinct to the family. He served his purpose, and I think he goes into a coma, but they literally just blow him off because he goes broke. And the mother is just not having it, and Lily's beauty is seen as their last vestiges, their last chance, their last asset to pull the family out of the rut. That is so bad. So think, she's formed to be the way she is. She is a casualty of being brought up like this. And all the people around her affect the same attitude. It's not like she goes and helps the poor all the time, or goes to places that are different than her. So this is, I'm going to give you the backstory of Lily Bart's headspace, and that it's a dark headspace. After Lily's mother dies, that's when Lily goes off to Mrs. Peniston, who takes her in, because how would it look if she didn't? And that is where we start the story. 11 years later, she's been with Miss Peniston. She's didn't have a mother to help her come out, and now she's trying, different people are setting up these love matches, and Lily just can't pull the trigger on them because she's not in love with these men. But she knows she needs the money. Miss Peniston believes also in wearing very expensive clothes and eating the finest food, and she lives at Miss Peniston's house. But Miss Peniston doesn't give her any money. She enjoys having Lily on the string. She enjoys when Lily does have to ask her for money for something, you know, that she has to be so like kind of grovelly and thank you. And she likes that. She likes having Lily subservient to her. So Lily has to please everybody. She can't have an attitude. She has to just be like, yes, ma'am. And when she gets scolded by the aunt for whatever, she's just, oh, yes, oh, I'm so sorry, you're right. You know, so she doesn't have, she's not free. She doesn't live her own life. So that's the headspace. That's the situation that Lily's in this story. She's also under the pressure of all these friends in this society, these friends with money, these married friends that have their country houses. They invite her to come and stay. And back in that day, you didn't come and stay overnight. You stayed for like a week, 2 weeks, the season. And she'd go to these summer houses where they're gambling and playing bridge, and they have all the money in the world to play around with their money. And she doesn't. And so she doesn't want to be seen as prudish, and she wants to score a man, and she doesn't want to look like she's a penny pincher, so she starts playing bridge, and she finds that she likes it, and then she starts owing money. Now, she's not owing them to some loan shark that's out of the picture. She owes it to the people in her circle. However, that doesn't fly very high. You know, you don't want to end up having this huge debt to your best friend or your best friend's husband. So she ends up losing at bridge. This novel, it's just preoccupied with pretense, how things look versus how they really are. And I'm going to give you some solid examples of that. For example, her best friend is Judy Trenner and the husband's Gus Trenner, and they have this country estate called Bellamont. Let me give you the pretense. At Bellamont on Sundays, it's called an omnibus comes. It's essentially a bus on Sunday to take them to church. And many times nobody gets in the bus. But it's seen in that area that they're just these great church-going folk because this bus comes to take them to church, regardless of whether anybody gets on the bus. It's a pretense. And it's seen that way, and everybody agrees with it, and it's just the most ridiculous thing in the world. Why are you having the bus come on a Sunday when half the time nobody gets on the dang bus? It's a waste of time, but they're seen as these pious churchgoers, which you get a chuckle out of that. Granted, this book has very, very few chuckles in it. Another pretense I mentioned before, Mrs. Peniston taking on Lily, not necessarily out of a burning desire, but how would it look if she didn't? Would she be looked at as not charitable? Another pretense in this novel is the affairs these people are having, married people even. And it's one thing for people to be straying outside of their marriage, but it's also worse. It's really more important to them about how it looks when it gets out. And that's really what concerns people. Not the fact that maybe your husband's cheating or you're cheating on your husband, but how does it look if it gets out, if the secret gets out? There's a lot of secret keeping going on in this elite society because people are not as they seem. So one acquaintance, Bertha Dorset, she's Mrs. Bertha Dorset, by the way, she's married, and she's at Bellamont, and she's had an affair with Lawrence Selden. Instead of Lily capturing the guy that was the current target for marriage, possible marriage, instead of sealing the deal with Percy Grice, who is Lily's target at Bellamont that season or weekend, Lily goes off and has a tete-a-tete with Selden, which makes Bertha mad because she still wanted to be with Selden. Lily didn't know this. She didn't know about the affair with Selden. So, long story short is this sort of thing, with Lily not even really realizing at the time that Bertha was hoping when Selden showed up that she could kind of get back with him, that Lily just talked with Selden on the side, that would incur so much vindictiveness on Bertha's part. She's just vindictive, she's backstabbing, and she is just part of Lily's downfall. The similarities to other novels are, let me give you some that came to my mind. In Gone with the Wind, when Rhett Butler and Scarlett O'Hara are having a lot of head-to-heads and talking back and forth and kind of verbally sparring about their social cliques and situations and stuff, that is very similar to Lily and Selden's going back and forth about how they can talk more frankly about the social situations and how they challenge each other and how they kind of have an understanding about what the social situation is really like. That's very similar to Gone with the Wind. So if you like Gone with the Wind and you like that kind of stuff, you would like that part of this novel. And another novel that springs to mind when reading this was Madame Bovary. Lily spends money like Madame Bovary, just kind of excessive and extravagant, and when she's got it, she's going to spend it. Yeah. Another novel that I got a jolt, I was like, this reminds me of the one I just reviewed, Nana by Émile Zola. If you took the Nana character and made her a socialite and threw her into New York society in this time period, it's very similar. And I almost think that Wharton might have been inspired by Nana. Because there's just, it's like, hey, I read the Nana. What if she was a New York socialite, a different person, but the same sort of thing. So yeah, I think there could be a little bit of inspiration there. I'm not sure. So back to the story. So Lily's gambling debts start her downfall. And what happens is her best friend's husband, Gus Trenner, is a speculator on the stock market. I don't think it's his actual job because I don't think any of them actually need to have a job, but he likes to speculate on the stock market and he likes to make money, and he's always talking about getting a tip from Rosedale and all this stuff. Or he comes to Lily and says, that he could invest her money. He could speculate with her money. So she has a small amount of savings at this point, and she trusts him with the money. She doesn't ask him questions about the transactions or anything like that. And he starts giving her these hefty returns on her money. And what does she do? She Madame Bovary's it out and she spends it. She spends it on fineries and things like that. She just thinks, why haven't I been doing this all along? People have told me, essentially, gambling. It's another way of gambling. The stock market is a gamble. They've been telling me this is wrong, and here I am making all this money, and he's giving her these returns from time to time. What he fails to tell her is that he's not using her money anymore. He's just giving her money in hopes of getting some sexual favors out of her. He's painting her in a corner because he knows that she really she can't tell anybody about it. And so she's really in a corner. So he's giving her these hefty returns, and she's buying finery, but she does buy two things of note with it. One is she buys some blackmail letters. Bertha Dorset had been giving Selden some love letters, and one of the maids had come across some ripped up letters, and she, for whatever reason, thought they were Lily's. And Lily buys the blackmail letters, not to blackmail anybody, just because she loves Selden. So she buys the letters. So she spends a good chunk of her money on that. And then she also, Gertie Farish is Selden's cousin. And she's the one that Lily kind of finds dingy and looks down her nose a little bit. She does charity work. And Lily gives money for Gertie Farish's charity cases. Even at one point, pays for somebody to go to like Europe to go for like a lung cure, to go to like a sanitarium or something. So she spends a good chunk of money doing some good things. So again, things other than a charity, she's not going to tell anybody, hey, I bought some I spent your money buying blackmail letters to get your butt out of the fire. She doesn't say anything about it. She doesn't say anything to Bertha. She doesn't say anything to Selden. She just buys the freaking letters and holds on to them. However, so Gus Trenor starts taking advantage of Lily wanting, when he gives her these dividends or whatever, wanting to try to take liberties with her. And eventually she gets the message that, oh dear God, he wants me to have sex with him. And he traps her, saying, oh, come here, my wife wants you to come over. And then the wife's not even there. So it puts her in a bad light. And then Selden just happens to be walking by outside and sees her leaving and thinks she's having an affair. It's just all disgusting because she didn't do a damn thing. She just went over there to see her friend, and her friend wasn't there, and she saw that Gus was trying to come on to her, and she just was like left. Okay, so Lily really, other than having tea at Selden's and a little bit of gambling among friends, hasn't really done anything wrong. But she is just hard and feathered in this society. She decides she's going to pay Gus Trenor back all this money that he's given her, telling her that he'd speculated on it and that was her money, but now, he lets her know basically it was his money, and he's all ticked off because she's not going to put out, and so she's like, I'm going to pay you back. But it's a lot of money. So she ends up going to her aunt, Mrs. Peniston, and she finally admits to the gambling debts, but her aunt, she's just disgusted by gambling. It's, not what a lady should do. We got our pretense. Ladies don't gamble. A jeune fille mariée do not gamble. They don't do it. So she refuses to pay the debts. Paying those debts it's a pretense. It would make her look like she condoned it. So she doesn't want to do it. She's like, I already give you a roof over your head. I already pay for all your expensive dresses and all your fine food. I'm not paying for your gambling debts. I understand it. The thing is it puts Lily in a bad position because now it's hard for her to go around her that circle because she owes them money. Or she owes Trenor money. So a Jewish man named Rosedale has been introduced into this story. And one thing I really hate about this novel, it's probably the only black mark or whatever you want to call the only smudge on this novel, is that they talk kind of disparagingly about the Jewish man. Like to always talk about typical of his race, and I guess that's how they thought then, and so it is typical of the time. But it is annoying to have people categorized as the Jewish one, typical of his race, like he's money grubbing or something. But whatever. Rosedale's as rich as Midas, and he wants in that upper echelon social circle, and he's on the very edge of it. He's sort of nouveau riche, but he's He's a real go-getter, and he's clever, and he's actually kind. He's kind, but she just finds him unappealing on many levels, and doesn't choose him as a marriage partner. But he is willing to marry Lily in order to gain access to her society, and he even puts it to her that he wants to utilize Lily's beauty, her cachet, into this already known society. He has as much money as Midas, and he's just looking for the right female to deck her out. He wants to find the right woman to spend his money. And he's like, look, I know you don't even love me yet. He's like, come on, let's do this. You're beautiful, you're charming, you're not after me. She wasn't ever trying to catch Rosedale. He's like, he loved that she was sort of aloof with him. Boy, she got Rosedale going, and he a couple times comes and is just like, come on, look, you got those letters. I know you did, because I own that house. I own the house that Selden lives in. I know that charwoman sold you those blackmail letters. Drop those damn letters, and all this crap about you being with somebody's husband, all these rumors will go away, and you and me will own this society. And she, honestly, Lily's mother would have been like, get on that, because that is the perfect match for her, in a sense, because she wants money and she wants to spend money, and he had all the money in the world and he wants her, and he recognizes the same sort of thing about how things look and how he wanted the best. He's like, he was very Rhett Butler with her, in the sense of like, I want you to be able to like rub your feet on these people. It was funny, but she vacillates. She chafes at it, and then she thinks about it, and she vacillates, and oh Lord, she doesn't pick Rosedale, because she's just torn too much between wanting her concept of what freedom looks like, which she hasn't even thought that through, what freedom in this society would look like. You'd have to leave the society. And then the other part of her wants the money and the prestige. So she's torn, and she vacillates on telling him no. And instead of paying her gambling debts back, because she can't right away, she legs it. She legs it to an invited cruise. She gets invited on a cruise by another little section of the group. And so she leaves the environment that's becoming kind of untenable at that point. And slowly, she still manages to ruin her reputation, or other people manage to ruin it for her, because what happens is she goes off with Bertha Dorset, of all people in the world, and she's unknowingly used by Bertha Dorset, because Bertha Dorset wants to keep on having her little affairs, because she's had an affair with Selden, and now she's having an affair with somebody else, and she likes it that Lily can keep Mr. Dorset occupied while she goes off and has an affair. Right? You following me? Because this is how it looks, because it's okay. She's accepted Lily into the society. She's a friend. It's okay in that situation for you to just, be hanging out with my husband and, wherever, and I'm off having an affair. But once she sort of gets caught, right? Bertha gets caught. She just goes ahead and throws Lily under the bus. Makes it look to all and sundry that Lily's having an affair with my husband. And so, oh my gosh, all this crap, all the accumulated crap gets back to Mrs. Peniston. And by the time Lily gets back, so all this crap, all this gossip and innuendo gets back to Mrs. Peniston and dribs and drabs. And by the time Miss Peniston dies, everybody had assumed that Lily is the sole beneficiary of her estate. She's going to get everything. She's going to get the rest and the residue of all the estate after the little things are paid out here and there. And this is just a known thing, that this is always how Miss Peniston was going to leave it. But Miss Peniston's had some poison dropped in her ear over the last 2 years. And so when she dies, she leaves the residue of all her estate to Grace Stepney, the one that lives in the boarding house and comes and visits with Mrs. Peniston. And one of the reasons why some of this poison gets dropped in Mrs. Peniston's ear was because at one point they're having a dinner party before Lily's downfall, and they were having somebody over, and Grace wanted to come to the dinner party. She lives at a boarding house. She's always coming over to the Peniston estate, and she wants to come to the dinner party, and Lily didn't really get it, but she saw the guest list and it's like, why does Grace need to be here? She can come another night. And when it got back to Grace or she put two and two together that Lily kind of snubbed her off the guest list, she never forgave her for that. So when Grace figured out that, oh my gosh, she's got all the money except the few legacies that were given out to different people. Lily was given $10,000. And you might think, well, yeah, $10,000 is a lot of money now. It's a heck of a lot of money back then. But it wasn't something for someone in that society to live on for the rest of their life. Especially not someone who owes like $9,000 of that dollars to some guy for gambling debts. It's insane. It really, honestly is insane. So, she owes Gus Trenor $9,000. She's going to get paid $10,000 from when the estate wraps up and the legacies are paid. But all that massive ancestral wealth is going to go to Grace Stepney, and Grace Stepney isn't having it with Lily. Lily comes to her and says, Grace, congratulations, you got Miss Peniston's estate. Do you mind giving me like a loan on that $10K that's coming? Because I need the money right now. And Grace is like, oh, no, she won't do it. She won't do it. And she eventually tells Lily something quite ugly. She says, your affairs brought on, essentially, Mrs. Peniston's illness. Like, her hearing about your, this, that, and the other, of you, having an affairs with married men, which was totally not true. But she tried to blame Lily for killing Miss Peniston. Meanwhile, Miss Peniston was ill anyway, and she was taking digitalis for her nerves, and you can Google what digitalis does to you. So, yeah. To find a soft place to land, or any place to land, Lily falls in with a different set of people. Now, these people are not in her society. They're wanting to get into the society, and Lily's thinking, they want to be socialites, and Lily's thinking, well, I know all the finest this, that's, and the others, and they're nouveau riche types, and she falls in with them to try to help them get into her old society, but nothing works out. And she even attempts to be one lady's social secretary, and it just doesn't work out. It just basically doesn't work out, and Lily is just going like this. Now she's not at Miss Peniston's house. She's living on the largesse of these different folks that aren't even in the highest society, and she's just going down. She owes the money to Gus Trenor, $9,000. She has normal bills, and that legacy ends up taking a year, she's told. It's not going to pay out for a year. So she's at loose ends. So she goes to Gertie, and Gertie Farish, the one that does the charity work, the one that she'd actually given money to help other people. And Gertie convinces Lily, with Lily's style and class, that Lily could work as a hat maker, like dressing hats. Like you take the hat and you put like all this, back then they wore hats for everything, and you put flowers on it. And she apparently had just such an eye for dressing a hat that she was thinking that Lily could learn how to dress hats, just be working class for just a little while, and then once the legacy's paid, that Lily could set up her own little shop. Because think, $10,000 back then is probably like $100,000 now, or $200,000. It was a lot. It's a lot of money. Here the thing is Gertie doesn't know she owes this money to Gus Trenor. Not that many people. Like Gus Trenor knows, Lily knows. Miss Peniston didn't even know that that's who she owed the money to. So everyone thinks, oh, you're going to get your legacy. You're going to get your legacy. Yeah, but the legacy's already spent if she pays him. She doesn't necessarily have to pay him. But that's the pride in her. That's the nobility in her. With no marketable skills at all, she goes to work, or a hat maker, a milliner, and she ends up working in a sweatshop. This is Miss Fine Lily Bart, who can't even stand when she's taken off her fancy dresses from the night before. She always had her maid. The maid would put the dresses away. When she woke up fresh in the morning, it was like somebody opened the drapes for you and bring you your tea in bed, that kind of fancy. Like now she's in like a boarding house with the old dresses. She doesn't even know what to do with this new poverty. She can't handle it. So she's now a working class woman. She's been ornamental her whole entire life, and she has no marketable skills. So in order to deal with all this poverty, because now she is in poverty now, and to deal with the discomfort that she's not accustomed to dealing with, and the new insomnia that's keeping her awake at night about what to do with the legacy. When's the legacy going to come? Am I going to pay it to Gus Trenner? What I could do if I didn't pay it to Gus Trenner? You know, that pretense. She begins taking a chemist's sleeping drafts, a prescription for chloral hydrate. I don't know if you know about chloral hydrate, but I think it was one of the drugs that Marilyn Monroe was taking. It knocks you out cold. She takes chloral hydrate for a while, so she develops a little bit of a dependence on it. And Lily runs into Rosedale again, and he sees how fagged out she is and how tired she looks, and he is just taken aback because in a way she even looks more beautiful than before, but she looks extremely worn down and tired, and he offers to have a drink with her out in public, tea. And she explains her situation to him very frankly. She speaks frankly that Gus Trenner had said he was speculating with her savings, but that he had been giving her his own money, and in the hopes that she would give him some sexual favors. I mean, she pretty much lays it out in sweeter, fancier terms. And that, yes, she had an inheritance coming from Mrs. Peniston's estate, but that she was now going to have to pay it all back to Gus Trenner. And so Rosedale shows this great understanding with her. To Lily, shows her kindness. He even wants to lend her his own money to be like, look, you are too fine for this. Let me pay off Gus Trenner. It'll be a business deal. Once you make your money, however you make it, you can pay me back. But she has been so burned by this freaking society that she doesn't even trust it. And she tells him, like, I've just not been good at business. I can't even take you up on that because I can't trust anything. And it's so freaking sad. It is so sad because Rosedale would have helped her out. Armed with the blackmail letters in her breast, she goes to visit Selden at the little apartment that caused all the drama in the first place, where she shouldn't have gone to his little flat to have tea. When she goes to visit Selden, and it brings up all these memories of the first time she realized she started loving him. And she tells him that she's sorry for the way they parted because they have a rocky relationship. And she weeps her soul out to him, and she's utterly broken. I do want to insert a quote here. I will put it actually up on the screen. It is such a sad quote because I think I'll cry if I have to read it aloud. But she talks about, it is so sad. It is so well written, and it is so heartbreaking. She asks Selden to make up the fire in the room, and when he goes to do it, she goes and takes those letters and throws them in the fire. So that's sad. It's really sad. She protects him to the end. Once the inheritance finally comes through, she's at this dingy, drab little boarding house, and she's just so tired. She hasn't slept in 2 complete days. And so she writes her checks. She writes the checks to just some random people, that little money here and there that she owed. And then she pays off Gus Trenner in another check. So she gets the money, wants to deposit that 10 grand into her account, and then there's another check to go off to Gus to pay him off. And then she drinks the chloral hydrate because she just cannot get to sleep. She takes a little bit of it and it doesn't work, and her mind is whirring. And then she goes and takes the rest of it, and she overdoses in the bed. It's really, really sad. There's an ambiguity as to whether Lily did it on purpose, if it was suicide or if it was accidental. I personally lean to accidental. I really do lean towards accidental because you hear her thoughts as she's laying in bed with the insomnia. Oh boy, the insomnia is real, and if you've had it, the way that it's written is quite accurate to how insomnia comes. Yeah, so anyway, I'm going to leave you to read it. It's good writing. Turns out that Selden, having sat with the previous conversation, the days before conversation with Lily, decides to come to Lily and ask her to marry him, the one word she wants to hear. And guess what? Gertie opens the door at this boarding house, and he's like, what the heck are you doing here? Because Lily's dead. She's like, well, how'd you find out this happened so fast? So Gertie allows Lily's dead, and Gertie allows Selden some time with her body alone, and tells him, like, essentially, like, go through her effects, because we're allowed to do that. You know, if there's something untoward, let's get rid of it. You know, it's the pretense. You know, let's just. And so he sees the letter to the bank. It's the check deposit. It's sealed, and then he sees one that says Gus Trenner, and he's like, oh my God, was she really having an affair with him? And you just want to smack him. It's like, dude, do you not believe anything she said to you? And so then he goes through her bank statements and sees, like, her check register, essentially, in modern terms, and sees who she's paid off, and then the rest of it was all to Gus Trenner, like, balance is like zero, you know? So he's like, oh, that's money that, you know, she paid Gus Trenner. She didn't really have to pay him. It's just the pretense of paying him, right? Like, she had to do it because she had to do it. Her pride made her do it, and he realized, oh my God, she was the good. She was wronged by the society, and I love her, and all this stuff. And it's sad because, you know, he realizes how much he really loves her, but she's laying there dead, and he's just curled up beside her. It's very sad. And just to give you that last kick in the teeth emotionally, the title of this book is from a book of the Bible, Ecclesiastes 7:4. And if you want to read it, I'm probably going to pop it up there for you. But it ends, in the heart of fools is the house of mirth. Essentially saying, all these foolish people, all these foolish people, you know, concerned with money and the god Mammon. It's a searing critique of materialism. And I want to say, do you guys really think anything's changed that much in 100 years? Do you still know people that care more about how things look than how they truly are? Yeah, I think this novel has stood the test of time. The novel is very sad. It's very depressing. You might need to get some Kleenex out towards the end. Even if Lily Bart is not a perfect person, you still feel for her. You do. Having said that, I hope you enjoyed this As Told by Theolyn's House of Mirth edition, quarantine edition. My jeans are getting tighter, and my hair is getting longer, and yeah, it is what it is, and I hope you're surviving well and maybe even thriving. And if you like this video, please push that like button. It makes my algorithms go higher, makes me get a little bit more engagement whenever you subscribe, and you just get notified that I post another video. And without further ado, have an excellent day. Take care. Bye.